Okay, so we're doing Keanu Reeves. Let's pray that it's a good one. So the first things I notice about Keanu's hands are that, well, he's an air hand. He has a square hand and long fingers. And Mercury leans very sharply away on the right. We have an overdeveloped mount of Luna there. The heart line is very straight. The headline sharply veers off in a different direction at a certain point in his life. We've got a very impactful and unfortunate event there in early 20s, shown on both hands. And on the left hand, we've got quite a large fork in the headline. So those are the things that I kind of notice about Keanu's hands just on first glance that need a bit of investigating, and we'll unpack it all here. Now, just looking at his nails, nails show us the way that we instinctively approach life and new situations. And the nails here, they're very long and they're wide, and they show us unusual creative artistic abilities and an idea of sort of conformity when approaching new situations. Generally, these kind of long, wide, oval nails show a person who approaches situations with optimism and adaptability. So these rounded nails show us someone who's friendly, agreeable, pleasant, doesn't expect too much of others, and as a result doesn't become disappointed. His fingers are generally very straight. There is some gentle kind of leaning there of Saturn towards Apollo. Not surprising, as being an actor, and that his career depends on his talents. And round nails are also associated with good humour. So the width of the hands here, with this kind of width of the hand, in conjunction with this overdeveloped Luna, it shows us, I mean, he's a very square palm. We've got a very practical person here. He's very capable and very able to learn new skills. This is generally someone with a kind of a wide, squarish hand. Is someone who's considerate of others, considers others, but also considers the wider picture and knows how to mediate in situations, understands people, has a good sense of right and wrong should other signs, be present in the palm. But a large or overdeveloped amount of Luna in conjunction with a square hand shows a good amount of energy when it comes to creative endeavors. And we can see here the headline reaches deep into Luna, and it shows us that he's this is the right hand. He's reaching into the depths of his imagination, and in order to carry out the roles that he plays. And a long headline like this shows us someone who is thinking. He's a deep thinker. He's someone who's more of a sort of a lateral thinker. It's quite a straight headline. There is a sort of kink in it, in that it changes direction after a certain point. And this is the psychological framework changing. This point of view, his mental sort of outlook, drastically changes at a certain point of his life. Things are put into perspective. But this long headline, a headline that's far-reaching, is someone that is thinking, much more. How can I put this? They're highly imaginative, so they're not. Although the palm is square, this is a very practical person. The headline being this long, This is someone who's thinking ahead, they're thinking of future projects, and a long headline, a headline that reaches this far into Luna, shows us someone that is their work. It's a sign of that their work affects the lives of many. And we can see a gap here between the life and the headline, and that shows unconventional thinking, radical thinking. It's also someone who has a tendency to jump before they think, act before they think, and it's known as the mark of the tiger in Tibetan palmistry. It's someone who's perhaps a little bit impatient and, might sort of overtake unnecessarily because they've been stuck behind a slow-moving vehicle for just a bit too long, or just get annoyed if the pizza delivery is just taking too long, this sort of thing. And, whereas everyone else is just sort of like, well, okay, it's only a pizza. And I suppose it's the life energy is not connected with the rational. So although they're both negatives and pros to this, so as I say, impatience, acting without thinking, but also it's unconventional thinking, it's radical thinking, it's someone who has an ability to look outside of a situation and draw inspiration from angles that others might not see. I don't like the term think outside the box, it's just too boardroom. So it's interesting that he has this, as well as a headline that reaches so far into Luna, because it shows us that he likely has active input in the roles that he plays and how to play them, and more than that, probably how, and I would have thought by now, on set, has active input into how certain things, ideas, changing things within the script. I'm kind of assuming here, but at the same time, being so practical and conformative at the same time, probably doesn't like to overstep the boundaries and understands and respects the hierarchy of the system to some degree. We haven't got an overly sort of short Saturn finger, so this is someone who does sort of respect the boundaries. It's someone who's not willing really to rock the boat, but at the same time, they're going to stand up for what's right. There's no doubt about that. We've got here, you can see this remarkably strong loyalty line. The Mercury is straight. The fingers are generally very straight. They're wide, they're well formed. We've got a wide hand. This is someone who has an excellent sense of right and wrong. The heart line is short. It does appear to sort of stop underneath Saturn, however. It's interesting. So, whilst it appears, now I've just been looking at all the pictures I've got here, and some of them aren't very clear, and this one isn't very clear, but you can just about make it out. It does appear as though the heart line starts underneath Saturn, and the heart line is quite straight, which would actually show an image, show a picture of someone who's quite sort of selfish and cold. But actually, what's happening here is that the heart line it's sort of pulled apart at its beginning. There's an island right here. You can see it just about there. It's quite hard to make out, but it's faint, and that's because the energies are sort of disrupted and pulled apart, and the line kind of, a bubble is sort of placed in that line, in that flow of energy, and so it thins out, and with these poor sort of images that you see online, none of them are particularly taken with detail of the hands in mind when they're taken, so we don't really have what we need, so it's hard to see, but there is an island here, and you can see the heart line stretching out onto Jupiter, and this shows idealism. It shows us this person isn't actually selfish at all, and that there was a great deal of emotional disturbance and upheaval early on in this person's life. And the heartline reaching up onto Jupiter like this shows us they have high expectancy of others, in terms of what they expect, in a relationship, in friendships. And that kind of does contradict with what the nails are telling us about this person doesn't have high expectations. So I'm wondering if in fact it's purely in terms of relationships and friendships. That's what the heartline's telling us. In any case, we can see on another picture, and I have tried to darken this image, but particularly on the right hand, it was a very sort of white, it was overly lightened at the time. Now there's a few things going on here. The loyalty line, let's see, just here. You can see in that loyalty line a disturbance. And this shows us the loss that this person felt. You can see another island here connected to the family ring, connected to the loyalty line. You can see a second island on it here. These are two losses towards family, and it's a very painful one. And I've only seen this kind of thing a couple of times. I saw it recently in a reading I did for someone, and I'm not going to publicize that one. But it was tremendous loss. And it coincides with this loss here, that it occurs around the age of 22. So here's 25. And we know that because where Jupiter and Saturn meet, just below that, that's about 25. And this is the way I do things. It's not extremely accurate. A proper way of doing things would be to look at the side of the palm properly if I was to do this in person, and see where the lifeline begins and measure it out and use formulas and all that, and then you kind of get a much more accurate image. But even then, still you're going to be out by a couple of months at times, so it's better to just guesstimate, because it's never completely accurate anyway. So that's how I do things, and it does tend to work. It's something that I've been keeping an eye on, I've been monitoring, and it does tend to work. That's about the age of 25. This is early 20s. Look at the size of this island, and especially when compared with other major events, there aren't any really. There's nothing else that in this person's life that affects this person in the same way, with the exception of the island over here, which you can't see in this image. And you can see a little sort of tassel coming from it as well, and it reaches down, affecting the life. It's sort of aiming in that area, in that person's environment. So it affects this person physically, practically, as well as deeply, emotionally, mentally, as we see it on the left hand as well, because the left hand is how we're affected by things internally, and the right hand is how we're affected externally. So we have here great loss, and it's connected. It's likely this loss here and here as well. So there's two major losses there, and this loss sits closely or closer to the family ring. So one is younger than the other. It's awful. And you can also see here, look, we've got two deep relationship lines here. Now, the relationship lines appear on the percussion side of the palm, just underneath Mercury finger. And the closer to the heart line that the relationship line sits, the earlier on in life that relationship. And we can see here very roughly that that's, if we just divide this in half, that's about 35. So this is 20s, early to mid 20s. So that's this relationship here. This person has two major loves in his life. And the first relationship is, it looks relatively short-lived. But that's not to say that this person didn't love them deeply. The second is much more positive. It's much deeper and it's longer. Obviously I can't get much more from this kind of image. It's a very whitened image and there isn't much to see. Now, looking at the differences between the left and the right hand, we can see that Mercury tends to lean more sharply away on the right hand. Apollo and Saturn sit just a little bit closer together. The space between the tips is a little bit closer on the right hand as well. And this shows us that although Keanu is now more able and feels he's less of a loner, he's less of a lone wolf now. He's more sociable in his older age than he was when he was younger. He's always been a bit of a loner. But now he's more willing to kind of be in the limelight, I suppose. I mean, he's always sort of been in the limelight, really, but not just professionally. It's not the right way to explain it. He's more now able to mingle with others and develop that social network rather than just having one or two close friends. He's now more willing to just be less of a loner, more of a team player, I suppose. But at the same time, whilst he doesn't mind being around others so much anymore, Mercury leaning this far away shows us that he does still require freedom in isolation. And looking at the left hand, look how high up the headline starts on the palm, right up onto Jupiter. And this again shows us just how honourable this person is, this sense of justice and right and wrong, but also this sense of that, I'm going to rise, I've got ambitions, I know what it is I want to do, this is where I'm going to go. And at first his headline heads towards this outer Mars, this place of planning and financial security, has this idea about what it is he wants to do, and that comes with building this sort of financial fortress. He has ambitions to make money. That's how he starts out, but then things change, and this doubling of the headline here, it's a large fork, so large that it's a doubling of the headline. It shows us a couple of things. Firstly, that was terrible. That this lower line of the head is just want to get my facts straight before I start blurt out some mistake. Just have a little look at this image here just to get my facts straight. It is a doubling of the head. It is a large fork in the headline at the very least, and it shows us a couple of things. Two different ways of looking at situations. So this person has an ability to look at a situation and see it from different perspectives, and this is extremely helpful in acting roles. But also the largeness of this fork here, really, it's more than this. It's not so much a fork as it is a doubling of the headline, and it shows us that this person has to appear in one respect to others, to the outside world. So this upper headline here is it's showing us who he is to the outside world. The upper headline, if ever the headline doubles, it's showing us the person who they reveal to the outside world, their external appearance to others, and in their sort of work life, career, towards friends. The lower shows us who this person really is. They reveal themselves only to the people closest to them, and you often see the doubling of the headline in famous people's palms, people who have been in the spotlight for so long, they kind of have to sort of develop a second sort of persona almost, to partly as a sort of defense mechanism really, but you often see it with actors, particularly because they're playing roles all the time. So when the cameras are on them, they kind of turn into this, okay, this is my camera persona right now, this is my paparazzi persona, I'm going to be this person whilst these vultures are around, because this is what I have to do in order to kind of get by. And you can see that, just having a closer look at this image here, the headline here, there's a large island where the second sort of headline begins to develop. So this shows just how difficult it is to be in the spotlight, and this person, it's showing them adapting and kind of, okay, this is what I'm going to do in order to deal with this situation. And as I've said, with other signs in the person's palm, the way they approach instinctively and respond to new situations, with what the fingernails are showing us, it's showing us that this person has this sort of ability to adapt to situations, and that's what's happening here. But this large island forming on the headline here is, at the same time, it's this person, it's sort of showing serious depression here, and the need to kind of get away, and that's why we have this ultimately this shift in psychological outlook. So we have here this person aiming towards outer Mars here, this headline of this high ambition, I'm going to make money, I'm going to get famous, and I'm going to do all this and that, and then this awful event occurs. It changes everything about this person's life. They develop this kind of secondary persona. The heartline straightens out as a result. They become very sort of there's emotional damage there, but also it's their kind of defense mechanism, and this sort of need to escape and be alone and contemplate. This is all due to these events that occurred early on. I mean, partly it is just who he is as well. But this, reaching down, the headline reaching down into luminous, it's looking, reaching more into a place of imagination, escapism, but also it's, even the upper headline reaches a different area. That the psychological framework completely changed. This person no longer values money in the same way that they used to after this traumatic event. So we can see that having this honorable kind of beginning in life, this in terms of where they're thinking, their ambitions, their ideas, a place of sort of high judgment and high ambition, it all changes, and the perspectives have completely changed as well. So money for this person no longer is just no longer nearly as important, and you can see the headline dropping right down into Luna, that inner headline there, and that's a tendency to look towards, as I say, escapism, towards imagination, and likely travel and looking towards places outside of reality for or outside the sort of physical world for answers. So I think this person is potentially quite sort of spiritual, but also has a tendency to become quite depressed, and that's seen by the island. Well, where was it? It was over here, but you can't really see it in this image on the headline. Now, it's interesting that the career line, oops, that's not accurate. There it is. It tends to stem from quite a sort of standard place. So that's a standard kind of career line. Keanu's only shifts, it's only slightly over onto Luna. I mean, notice you've got Venus well developed. Luna is very sort of conic there. It's very well developed. Or, I mean, potentially overdeveloped. And that goes with, this sort of over imaginative thinking. Very useful in his role. So it's good that he's utilizing that, because if he wasn't an actor, well, he could well have some serious issues. And the bridge of Neptune here that bridges Luna and Venus allows his ideas, his thoughts, who he is, to get across to the world. This bridging of creativity with what they feel they can do and their desires and their physicality, their vitality. So, and that's, I think, why he's very physical in his creative roles. This gap is bridged. Neptune is the place, this is Neptune here, it's the place of captivating an audience. So this is why we have this career line stemming from this area. Normally actors or people who desire a role, a career in the limelight, tend to have a career line that stems from here, reaching up onto Saturn. We don't see that so much here, and that's, I think, because actually Keanu doesn't necessarily, he doesn't crave that audience. Doesn't, and people who do, I mean, I see it quite a lot actually with actors. They don't have a career line that stems from Luna because they don't actually desire that audience. They desire working in a creative field and, desire or utilize the faculties of captivating an audience in conjunction with creativity and imagination. So that's where the career comes from. So it's in between Neptune and Luna. So that's interesting. And we can see here the basal phalanx of Mercury is quite long when compared with the rest, and that shows us again this independence. All the other fingers are relatively straight here, and except for Mercury wants to get away. Particularly, you see it more on the right here. That's a very sharp sort of trying to escape the modern world. And with Saturn, they gently lean towards each other, and again this shows us a considerate nature. So although the heartline at first, if you were to look at this heartline, I mean, you can just about see it in this image, it does curve up here on the left hand. Although you might say, okay, well, this is quite, at first glance, this is quite a sort of cold and hard and selfish person. It's just not the case at all. Closer inspection, the heartline does in fact reach up in between Jupiter and Saturn, and again this shows us someone with a very balanced nature, a good sense of right and wrong. Where the heartline is the strongest is certainly after, I'm not doing very good in my lines today. The heart line is stronger after, 20s, certainly, but that's because this person has had to become emotionally hardened as a result of it. It's a defense mechanism as a result of the things they've been through. So there we have it. I think I'm going to stop there. I mean, you can see just how large Venus is here. I mean, that's, not only does it show a great capacity to care for others, it shows a great vitality, but also a great ability, a great feeling of ability as to what they can do and what they can achieve, and that's certainly evident. Excellent, good stuff. There we are, there we have it. Very open-minded individual, as you can see here. Not so much with that, but with the heart and the headline, or the inner headline, what this person keeps to themselves in secret. They are very open-minded, but they appear very sort of, well, they're still open-minded as to how they appear really towards others. Just going off on a bit of a side tangent here, but I'll end there, I think, because I'm going to start rambling, and I've really gotten to the root of everything I can that's of any importance. So that's Keanu Reeves. Thanks for watching this Sunday case study. If you like this, give it a like, give it a share, please subscribe, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.